Hi, I'm Pastor John from New Life Assembly, and today we're continuing our daily devotional series in the Song of Solomon. We're looking at chapter 7 today. This is the dance that Shulamith dances before her husband for his own private pleasure and for hers. And so let's get into the text today and take a look at the Song of Solomon chapter 7. Chapter 7 verse 1, this is Solomon speaking about his wife, and he says, "How beautiful are your feet in sandals, O noble daughter! Your rounded thighs are like jewels, the work of a master hand. Your navel is a rounded bowl that never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is a heap of wheat, encircled with lilies. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. Your neck is like an ivory tower. Your eyes are pools in Heshbon, by the gate of Bath-rabbim. Your nose is like a tower of Lebanon, which looks toward Damascus. Your head crowns you like Carmel, and your flowing locks are like purple. A king is held captive in the tresses. How beautiful and pleasant you are, O loved one, with all your delights. Your stature is like a palm tree, and your breasts are like its clusters. I say, I will climb the palm tree and lay hold of its fruit. Oh, may your breasts be like clusters of the vine, and the scent of your breath like apples, and your mouth like the best wine." Now Shulamith speaks, and pretty much interrupts him, and she says, "It goes down smoothly for my beloved, gliding over lips and teeth. I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. Come, my beloved, let us go out into the fields and lodge in the villages. Let us go out early to the vineyards and see whether the vines have budded, whether the grape blossoms have opened, and the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. The mandrakes give forth fragrance, and beside our doors are all choice fruits, new as well as old, which I have laid up for you, O my beloved." And looking at this text, let me just first tell you that this is the most intimate and the most sexually charged language of the entire book. We open in chapter 7 with the finishing of chapter 6. If you remember from yesterday, whenever we talked about how the people, the chorus, the men and women, were saying, "Return, return," and I had said that shuv in Hebrew, and that it might mean continue to dance. And we mentioned that dance. It said something like a dance between two armies, but the word there in Hebrew suggests that it's possibly a style of dance, a very erotic style of dance that is meant for Solomon's eyes only, which is why Solomon responds and says, hey, this is my wife and this is her dance for me. You guys aren't supposed to be watching this. Some people suggest that in chapter 7, the first 4 or 5 verses are actually spoken by the chorus, but this is probably unlikely. It is much more likely that Solomon is speaking about his wife as she dances for him. Now, this is another type of foreplay. We've seen the kind of foreplay where there's poetry going on, and they're talking to one another, and they're beginning to kiss and beginning to become more intimate physically. So this is just another one of those foreplay things for the married couple to enjoy with one another. I say this, love in marriage, in sex in marriage, become quite freeing when one feels safe and when one feels appreciated. And so this is kind of where the book is heading in chapter 7. It is showing us that they are growing in their intimacy, in their love, and in their ability to make love with one another. They're both not virgins anymore. Now they know some things. Now they're becoming experts at pleasuring one another and that type of thing. But the most important thing about being married and talking about sex is that sex is completely open in marriage, whereas in any other instance in the Bible, sex is prohibited. So if you're not married, or if you're married to one person and having sex with another, all of these different forms of sex outside of marriage are sin in the Bible. It's only within the marriage covenant that a husband and wife are more than allowed to explore and enjoy one another in every way that they wish, that they both find acceptable. And so, looking at this text, we see that Shulamith dances for her husband. Dancing does have an erotic nature to it. We're more than aware of that here in America, where we have the kind of dancing that should not be done in public, and yet it is in bars and all these types of things. But as we look at the text here, what we need to understand is that Shulamith is doing this for her husband. This is a private matter, and Solomon actually tells the crowd, he says, "Go away, this is for me, this is not for you, this is for me." And so they are focusing on one another, and Solomon is now describing his wife. He begins from her feet and goes up to her head and talks about her in that sense. He talks about her feet and her sandals. Sandals were a symbol of wealth in the Bible. People with sandals usually were well off. Usually if they were barefoot, it was because they were mourning or they were poor or whatever. He talks about her rounded thighs, like jewels. He hasn't mentioned those before, so he's obviously looking up from her feet and observing her dancing before him. This special dance, this erotic dance, it's called them, I believe the Hebrew is Maya Hanem or something like that, or Hamim or something like that. And we don't really see it a whole lot in the Bible, so it's a rare occurrence. He talks about her navel, so her stomach is exposed as she's dancing for him. Her belly is a heap of wheat encircled with lilies, and so the lilies, once again, the flowers and springtime, all of these point to an erotic nature, a sexual nature, if you will. And then he talks about her breasts again. Talks about her neck, and a little bit differently. This time he says it is like an ivory tower. And scholars are unsure whether this means that she is no longer sunburnt. Ivory is a white material, so they're wondering if she's no longer sunburnt, or if he's referring to her strength for him, to her form. You'll notice that he uses a lot of concrete imagery here. He talks about her eyes being like the pools of Heshbon. And the pools of Heshbon were this wonderfully refreshing place, like an oasis in the middle of the desert. And people would come from the desert to Heshbon and they would enjoy the pools. They were refreshing. And so, in a sense, he's saying that staring into her eyes is refreshing to him, that he enjoys them so much. And we have said in our cultures today that the eyes are the window into the soul. That idea of window and waters and mirrors suggests this reflective nature from the soul outward. And so this is the kind of imagery that we get. But he continues to use these senses as concrete images to explain how his wife is. He's been doing it for the whole book. She tends to talk about sense and about, how things look and how things feel. He tends to talk about her structurally as a strong woman, as a powerful one, as a beautiful woman. And so this just tends to be how they do approach one another. Talks about her nose is like the Tower of Lebanon, which looks toward Damascus. Now he's not saying that her nose is a big nose or that it's out of whack or anything like that. What he's saying is that her nose is probably white like the tower that looks toward Damascus. And so there was a tower in Israel that pointed toward Damascus, pointed north, and it was probably a very white tower. So the suggestion by most scholars is that she is no longer sunburnt and no longer feels of herself that she is unworthy to be the queen, along with Solomon as king. And so it seems like she has begun to get more comfortable. And we'll see her get more comfortable with her sexuality and with her marriage as we read on. He finishes by saying, "Your head crowns you like Carmel." He's referring to Mount Carmel there. Mount Carmel is the highest mountain in the Israeli area there. And so it sort of is the crest or the peak. And so he's once again telling her, you are greater than the others around you. If you compared her to the other women And you said that they were all mountains. Well, she is the greatest one. And that's what he's saying to her. He says that she has flowing locks of hair like purple, and then that he is held captive in their tresses, in her hair. She does not have purple hair. She has black hair. We know that from earlier in the book. But as she dances in the nighttime, the hair might give off a hue of purple as the moonlight hits it, or as different lights in Israel are hitting it, or in the palace. And we all know if certain lighting hits hair, it changes the shining color of it. And so as we continue on, look through 6, he talks about how beautiful, how pleasant she is, with all of her delights. And then he talks about her stature, and I just want to explain this because it's pretty obvious what he's saying. He describes her like a palm tree, and her breasts like the fruit of that palm tree. And then he says he wants to climb the tree and, play with its fruits. So obviously they're getting a lot more familiar with one another and their sexuality. And you should be able to grow in your relationship with your spouse and get more comfortable. There needs to be a safe environment for you to do that in your marriage. And if there's not, if you don't feel safe, you won't be able to have these intimate moments where you're together and where you can grow in your sensuality together. God purposed marriage for a couple of reasons. One of the main ones is procreation, but that's not the only reason to have sex. Sex is also pleasurable. It also serves a purpose of enjoyment, and we can see that here in chapter 7. These two enjoy one another, and they enjoy one another on every level, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and sexually, relationally. So they are enjoying each other, and that is the image that he gives of her. That he basically affirms that he wants to have sex with her, that he wants to enjoy his wife as fully as he can. And then he tells her that her mouth, as she kisses him, he mentions her breathing, the smell of her breath, and he says, may it be like apples. Apples, of course, are an aphrodisiac. And so he is pointing out that as they are making love, her breath is sweet to him. And then he says, as they kiss, he says that your mouth is like wine. Now she interrupts him in that moment of talking about the wine. And she says, it goes down smoothly from my beloved, gliding over lips and teeth. She's talking about the imagery of wine. She's taking that concrete image and saying, I enjoy it and you enjoy it. So we saw earlier in chapter 4, whenever they first got married, that she was a little less free in her love. But now she is growing comfortable with him. She's growing comfortable in her love for him and in everything that they do together. So she's getting used to it as they continue. She continues to speak, I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. This is the third of a refrain in the book. 3 times in the book you have usually the wife saying, for instance, my beloved is mine and I am his. I am my beloved's and he is mine. And then you have this one. I am my beloved's and his desire is for me. The whole idea there is the unity of their marriage, the union of these two together in love. And so as we finish out our section, the bride becomes ready to call him to the marriage bed. And that's exactly what she does in 11 through 13. Come, my beloved, let us go out into the fields and lodge in the villages. Let us go out early in the vineyards and see whether the vines have budded, whether the grape blossoms have opened, and the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. So these are overtones of sex. She's basically propositioning him. Usually in the book he's propositioning her, but she has grown so comfortable in their relationship, so safe with him that she knows that what they do together is private, that he will guard that. He won't be telling the other guys at the water cooler, hey, you won't believe what my wife did last night, or anything like that. He is safe with her, and he is private with her. And that safety, that security, allows her to be free with him, just as he is free with her. And so this is what we see as we look at this 7th chapter. It is the most sexually explicit chapter, and yet at the same time, in the actual lovemaking, the actual sex, once again, the writer of the Song of Solomon is careful not to be just flat out pornographic. I love that about the Bible, that it maintains a purity and an innocence, and it also maintains a proper understanding of privacy in marriage. And so we are not let into their bedroom to see exactly what they're doing with one another, but we are more than understanding what they'd like to do and what they are going to do. And I think it's wonderful that the Bible does not become this dirty little way of looking into this marriage. I think that it gives us helpful hints for marriage and for love and relationships, and yet at the same time does not give us this inappropriateness that could be around. And so I hope this helps you in your marriage to be able to be intimate with one another, to be able to go deeper in love with one another, and to fully enjoy one another's company, one another's life together, one another's body, one another's relationship, and that you will grow more intimate and more deep in your love for one another. I hope you're having a blessed day.